tried to explain this over there. But in a nutshell, it's this, that there's benefit in having these witnesses for us. One of the benefits is this, that it helps us to have a more kind of tangible feeling that we are being watched. It's relatively easy to forget about God, simply because He's not tangible. And we're so used to touching things and feeling things and seeing things. Like, it's very easy, unless we're consciously conscious of God and consciously conscious of His signs and His existence, then it's very easy to let that fade into the background and get lost in the dunya. That's the nature of the dunya. It pulls us away from God to form a challenge, so that we have this struggle within ourselves. So if we just have God as the only witness, and He's watching us and looking at us, then that's fine. But it doesn't have as strong an effect on us to prevent us from doing bad things. Whereas if we also know that our limbs, for instance, are going to testify against us, right? That's going to be very close to home. Every time I want to hit somebody, I'll look at my hand and be like, oh, this hand's going to talk about, it's going to testify against me on the Day of Judgment that I hit this person unjustly, right? When I speak badly about someone, I'm going to remember, oh, my tongue is going to speak, like, it's going to testify against me on the Day of Judgment. So it's something very close to home that constantly reminds us that that's going to happen. With the messengers, the prophets and the imams, it's the same way. By letting us know that the prophets and imams see our deeds on a regular basis, like, if you think about that, we should never have the guts to sin. Sometimes we for whatever reason, because of our own ignorance, we're willing to sin before God, and we say, inshallah, He's merciful, He will forgive us. But generally, I'm speaking for myself, generally we might even have more respect for the Prophet. I shouldn't say that in that way, but sometimes we act in a way, we seem to have more respect for the Prophet. Can you imagine embarrassing yourself before the Prophet? I think of the worst sin that you committed. Can you imagine if the Prophet was standing over you, watching you as you committed that sin? You shrink and want to you wish you were dead before you let the Prophet see you. And think of a parent, for instance. If a parent saw you sin, or siblings saw you sin that you respected, right? You'd be so embarrassed that, I'm so embarrassed that they saw me do that, or say that, or whatever. So now when he tells us that the prophets, the imams, these people that we love, that we're devoted to, that they see our sins, they see our deeds in general, then it has a strong effect on us to help us to control ourselves. So it's not that God needs the witnesses for His own judgment. No, He knows everything and He can judge us by Himself. He doesn't need to justify His judgment. He is just and He'll do it justly. But having this system of witnesses helps us to perform our duties better. Yeah?
But if that's the case, then why the Day of Judgment? The Day of Judgment, we're not physical beings.
We are. We're given back our bodies on the Day of Judgment.
But what I mean is, okay, well, maybe that's not the point. The point being, what's done is done. In the Day of Judgment, whatever you did is past tense. Why would God still require a witness to testify for you if what's already... You understand what I'm saying? It's like, why would He need a witness?
Why do we need judgment? Why can't He just... Once we die, He knows best, just put us in heaven or hell, wherever we belong.
I mean, He's going to make...
I don't have a solid answer for that. I know, like, the expression of judgment, the description of judgment in the Quran has a great effect on us, because it really makes us feel how real it's going to be. That we're going to actually see our actions in front of us. We're actually going to read our book of deeds that's going to be before us. It's almost like it's beyond a shadow of a doubt. It's leaving no room for anyone to ever point a finger and say, but that's not a fair judgment. When everything's there in front of everyone, all people will see our deeds. Well, if we're unlucky, the Quran tells us those people who qualify, right, their judgment is done in private to save face, right? But for other people, it's going to be a total public trial, where your book of deeds is in front of you. You're made to read from your book, right? To enumerate all the things you've done, all the bad things you've done. You have the scales, for instance, where your good deeds and bad deeds are put in the scales, and whichever one goes up or down, and based on that you're judged. You have these witnesses coming forth and saying, I saw him do this, I testify that he did such and such. Like, it leaves no room for anyone to say, God's unjust. It shows beyond a shadow of a doubt that He is ultimately just.
So it's essentially not for him to decide based on the witnesses or decide based on the evidence. It's just for people to realize the justice of God.
That's the best I understand it so far. Okay. He definitely doesn't need it. What the other purpose is, this is the best purpose I can see for it, to my understanding. Sister? Can you speak up a little bit?
I'm sorry. You said something about possibly being no crucifixion for Jesus.
Yeah.
I didn't understand. What?
Yeah, the Quran. We're gonna get to this in maybe about 2 days. There's a verse in the Quran which says that the Jews, they conspired against Jesus. They weren't happy with his message. They weren't happy with the fact that he was supposed to be the awaited Messiah. And because of this, they conspired against him, worked together with the Romans, and tried to kill him, tried to have him crucified in the Roman style. But the Quran says that it didn't happen. They didn't succeed. They tried, but they didn't. They didn't kill him. They didn't crucify him. It seemed like God made it seem like it to them. They thought they killed him, but He actually protected him, and He lifted him up off of earth so that he wouldn't have to suffer that punishment. And so now we know that he's alive still, but not kind of in this life, and he'll be returned. The prophecies say he'll be returned to earth at the end of times, kind of like the second coming prophecies in Christianity as well. That he'll return to earth, and he'll kind of co-rule along with Imam Mahdi, the 12th Imam. But together they'll establish a just government of God over all earth, and they'll lead this government until the final judgment day, whenever he's destroyed.
Could we use the word rapture to explain the ascension of Jesus Christ?
Rapture?
Rapture?
I don't know that term. Is that a theological term in Christianity?
Yeah, it's a Christian,
Yeah,
if I'm not
I don't
mistaken,
know.
a Christian theological term. Ascension to heaven or whatever.
And then, yes, sister?
Why 12? Like 12 tribes, 12 disciples, 12 imams. Why is it always 12?
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. There are people who have theories about numerology. They like to look at the numbers and find secret sciences and stuff. And that there might be some secret behind it, but I don't know those things.
Does Imam Hussein also here
His return is going to be what's called the Raj'ah. The Raj'ah it's going to happen sometime later. Again, I'm not very clear about I don't think we know actually what the time frame is when these things are going to happen. But all we're accountable for is one of our essential beliefs as Muslims, as Shia, that there is going to be a Raj'ah when certain people are returned to life to fight one last battle of good and evil. We don't know exactly who's going to return. All we're told in the Ahadith is that those people who are pure good will be raised, and those people who are pure evil will be raised. Right? So Imam Hussein is named. He's one of the people who's named as one of the ones who will return. In different Ahadith, they've named different Imams and different prophets, but we can't say for sure which ones will come back. All we know is that there will be certain Imams, certain prophets who will come back, and they'll lead an army, or there will be an army against people like Muawiyah and Yazid and Shaykh and Pharaoh, these sorts of people who are pure evil. And there'll be one last battle in which good will vanquish evil, and then everything will be destroyed.
Isn't that does that accord to our faith? Because the death is supposed to be final answer to the judgment.
What? It doesn't have to be. Why does that have to be final before judgment?
I mean, isn't that what we believe, that we are